Hi everyone, I'm Jackie. I teach anthropology at Vanier College, and I get a lot of people writing to me to find out about job opportunities in anthropology at the Cégep level. So I thought I'd make this brief video explaining how that works and just send the link to all the people who email me. Um, the first thing I would say to anybody thinking of teaching in Cégep, especially if you grew up outside the province of Quebec and didn't go through the Cégep system yourself, or even if you did, because when you're a student, let's face it, you don't really think about the structure so much, is to do a bit of research on what the Cégep system is and how it started. It's unique to Quebec, and it makes sense in a context of reforms that happened where people wanted education to be accessible to everybody. So, in large part, the mandate of the CEGEP is to form critical thinkers. That being said, in your research, you'll see that there are two basic types of program in CEGEP. There's the pre-university CEGEP programs that generally last 2 years in theory, and that helps students make the transition from high school to university. Remember that in Quebec, high school ends at essentially the equivalent of grade 11, unlike the rest of North America. So that first year of CEGEP is like the last year of high school everywhere else, and the second year of pre-U programs is a little bit like the first year of a bachelor's, sort of, because again, in Quebec, a bachelor's again depends on the program, but many of them are 3-year programs instead of 4 as in elsewhere in North America. Now, the career programs are 3 years and they're more hands on. They used to be called technical programs. So, in those programs, students are prepared for the workforce. They can still go to university if they want to, but during their DEC, their Diplôme d'études collégiales, they're doing much more hands on stuff. Now, regardless of whether a student is in pre U or a career program, they still have to take general education courses. Now, that would be language of instruction courses. There are 4 of those, which would be English and the English CEGEPs, French and the French CEGEPs, and I think there are 2 second language courses. So again, either French or English, depending on the sector one is in. Physical education, a couple courses in that. Humanities in the English sector and philosophy in the French sector. And I'll come back to that towards the end of the video because it's relevant to you folks in Anthro. And complementary courses. And so I'm giving you that background to help you understand the general structure, which is relevant because if you want to teach anthropology, you would be doing so typically within a wider program because the CEGEP system is more specialized than high school, but not as specialized as university. So there are no anthropology programs in CEGEP. There are things like social science or sciences humaines, sciences sociales, and anthropology courses are a part of those programs. So what that means is that you're catering to a different crowd than if you're teaching anthropology in university. Your students will not be anthropology students, they'll be, say, social science students. For the most part, they don't have to take anthropology. In most social science programs, anthropology is optional. At the government level, it's one of the options, as opposed to, say, history and economics, which are mandatory. Some CEGEPs have profiles within the social science program, such as child studies, international studies, and some of those profiles have obligatory anthropology courses. But your average social science student in general social science won't have to take anthro, which means that if they take it, usually it's because they're interested, they're fascinating, they only heard, mythical ideas of anthropology before, or, they're 17, 18. Sometimes it just fits in their schedule. So you're catering to a crowd generally who, they're brand new to anthropology. They don't really know what it is, or some of them are really curious, or they know what they've seen in the media, and it's interesting. And most of them won't go on to become anthropologists or even go to university in anthropology. They're going to go into all kinds of other careers, which has its own pleasure because you're going to be, encouraging people in different fields to be less ethnocentric and more culturally sensitive. So it's a form of activism in a way, which is really, really great. But it's definitely different than teaching anthropology at the university level, where you're going more into your training future anthropologists or future anthropology professors and researchers, and you're training them into the hardcore theory. In Cégep, we're there to give them a taste. Okay, a little bit of general context of the discipline, and some of them, wind up really loving it and wanting to pursue it later on. For better or for worse, as we know, the academic market isn't, what it used to be. Another thing is that since it's not a mandatory course in the social science program, different CJEPs will have different selections. So some CJEPs don't have anthropology at all. Some CJEPs may only have the intro course, which is generally a 4-field introduction to anthropology, including physical anthropology, archaeology, linguistic anthropology, and cultural anthropology. But some CJEPs have more than that. So for example, at Vanier, we have the intro course, which is a 101, and then we have a selection of 201 courses, which focus on, analysis, so things like anthropology of the supernatural, anthropology of race and racism, culture and sexuality, human evolution, archaeology, and so forth, anthropology of sports and leisure, native peoples of the Americas, and we also have a couple of 301 level courses, which are they're labeled as application courses. So there's a fieldwork course, for example, and then a 401 enrichment course where they write a big research paper in that discipline. So that's kind of how anthropology works. Also, because we're part of a wider program, we're expected to make links with the other social sciences like sociology, psychology, history, economics, because ultimately the students at the end of their program in social science will take a course called Integrative Project, where they have to integrate a bunch of different disciplines. So there's this fostering of an interdisciplinary approach, which is kind of easy with anthropology because it's an inherently interdisciplinary discipline, right? We touch on everything: politics, history, economics, sexuality, everything. Um, Also, because they're coming right out of high school and their high school curriculum isn't that great these days in terms of teaching essay writing skills, general communication skills, we have to teach a lot of basic college skills like writing an essay, note taking. So, again, different than university. Another thing I wanted to tell you is if you wind up teaching in a social science program, you might have access to teaching methodology courses, because another thing that's common to all the CJEPs in the social science programs is that there's a sequence of methodology courses: quantitative methods, research methods, which is an interdisciplinary kind of research methods, speaks for itself, and integrative project, which I've already mentioned, which is more of a library research paper, but integrating different disciplines. So all social science teachers are able to teach those courses as well. For QM, for quantitative methods, you need to have taken some stats, university level stats. So that's kind of it. It might be hard to get into anthropology because honestly, you know, there tend to be small disciplines. Again, they're not programs into themselves, so that um, sometimes you'll see job postings, and legally it's because the college has to post it, but there's already somebody who's part-time in the system that has priority. So some people write, sometimes I keep applying, I never get calls back. That's why. It's because some people have hiring priority, but because they don't have tenure or permanence, the college is still obligated to post it, but then it kind of goes by default to people who have hiring priority. But don't give up, keep applying, because you never know. Sometimes people are hired and it might be very part-time at first. A lot of people have to teach in different CJEPs at the same time. um, you know so it's difficult, and it can take a lot of time, but just keep trying, just keep applying every single semester. Go on the websites of different colleges, look at the HR pages. Here's another thing, though, that I tell people who want to apply to anthropology or any of the social sciences, is that if you're applying into an English college, an English CJEP, take a shot at humanities. I know it sounds counterintuitive because you might think that you need a degree in a humanities degree. But a lot of people who teach humanities have academic backgrounds in anthropology, sociology, philosophy, a whole bunch of other things. The humanities courses are interdisciplinary courses focusing on specific topics. They're three categories: knowledge, worldviews, and ethics. And they're designed again to help students be critical thinkers. So teachers design their own courses, and it's really fun. There are courses on gender and worldviews, indigenous topics, current events, all kinds of stuff. Whatever your professional passion is, you could design courses based on those in humanities. So if you're applying to English colleges, apply to humanities too. It might not feel like you might feel like, oh, but I want to teach anthropology. But you know, in some ways, humanities is more fun because you're not restricted by ministerial competency. Well, there still are some, but they're just different, and it's more interdisciplinary. You get to be a little bit more innovative than an anthro, where the it's a little bit, you know, what we have to cover is a little bit more strict. So that's something to consider. English as well, because there are English teachers in Cégep who have backgrounds in, say, sociology and so forth. It's not like high school where English courses are about teaching grammar and things like that. In the English courses at the Cégep level are, they're thematic. So it can be, I have a colleague who teaches a course about poetry by authors, people of color, women writers, and so on and so forth. So again, you can tailor a course to your interest, so long as it is about some form of literature, which is a very broad theme. Same thing with French, even as a second language, because most of the students who come to the English CEGEP are fairly fluent in French. They came out of French high schools, a lot of them, so that you can give some more advanced courses in French, again, that are thematic. So those are things to consider. Look at those postings as well. Language of instruction, second language, and humanities, in addition to anthropology. Um, I guess the last couple of things I wanted to say was in terms of qualifications. The government criteria for CEGEP teachers is, I believe, minimum a bachelor's, but then each CEGEP and even each program gets to determine what their criteria are. So usually most CEGEPs, most of the social science programs will say you need, say, a master's in the discipline that you're going to teach. So that's kind of in terms of what's on paper. They won't so much look. It's not like university where they're looking for how many publications you have. Again, it depends on the department, and I can't speak for all the CSHEPs. I can only speak for Vanier, and I know that at Vanier in social science, um, it's not so much about whether you have a PhD or you've published a ton of stuff. It's not that people are against that, but it's because of the age group that we teach and the level at which we teach. Like I said before, not this heavy duty, highfalutin theory stuff. Um, it's more about pedagogy. It's more about your relationship to students. So if you have any teaching background, at all, any teaching experience, even as a TA, any public speaking experience, put that on your CV. And when you come for your and focus on that in your letter too, like how you know like to engage with students and try innovative pedagogies, because that's really more what it's about at this level, not so much, oh, you published in the latest scientific journal. I mean, obviously put that too if you did. It's not going to hurt you, but it's not really the priority, at least not in social science. Humanities might be different. Depends. And when you come for your interview, just be genuine, be yourself. Don't be all like snooty and professorial. Again, I can't speak for all the CSHEPs, right? But from my experience at Vanier, if you look friendly, if you look approachable, if you come across as somebody who's going to get along with 17 and 18-year-olds, and be an engaging person with a sense of humor and just but still, serious and passionate about your discipline, then that's really what counts. I got the job at Vanier in 2002, started in continuing education. I had no teaching experience. I had a brief stint as a TA during my master's. I had a few public speaking opportunities in the queer community, and I had put that on my CV. I was ambivalent about that at the time, but I did it. And I got the position over two other candidates who actually had teaching experience, and I was told that's because I looked like I was passionate about anthropology. I loved talking about anthropology. I was going to get along with youth. I enjoyed being around youth, and that's what got me the job. Obviously, I was qualified. I had the master's, but beyond that, it wasn't so much about publications, the usual university stuff. So look, I hope this helps kind of give an overview. Like I said at the beginning, do a bit of research on the Cégep system, because if you show up for an interview and you understand what the Cégep system is, and if you can slip in things there about the college, the Cégep mandate in general, but also the mandate of the Cégep that you are applying to, that will look good, because you look like you've done your research and you're interested in the Cégep experience specifically, as opposed to some people who come as a stepping stone because they want to be university professors. Nothing wrong with that, but people who are hiring you, and a lot of us in the CJEP system we're there for life, especially because if you get tenure, it's a good gig. Maybe not, the pay isn't as good as universities, and maybe not as prestigious, but it's really fantastic in the sense that we can do research if we want to, but we don't have to keep our jobs, and we're engaging in youth in a different way, and that I feel has wider social implications. So, best of luck to all of you who will choose to apply to anthropology or humanities or English or whatever other discipline. And that's pretty much it. I hope this answers most of your questions. Bye.